Yeah, thank you very much, Eckhard. And thank you very much to all of the presentators who have been very good in time, because we should not forget that we are just in a kind of interim session. We will have tea afterwards, and then we have another session. But we should really take the advantage of having some time left in order to put questions and directly to the presentations and also to the presentators. We have microphones around, and we will then direct the questions to the presentators. So, are there any questions? Please.
Thank you very much. I want to know from Mr. Parks and also from NTPC, what is the cost of this variable operation of power plants? What is the impact on a specific hit rate? What's the percentage increase in cost of operation? What is the additional cost involved in making the system flexible, including, and what you think will be expected lifetime impact of the plants?
So to change the operations as I specified at the Pawnee plant, there were no investments that needed to be made to do that. That was a lot of operational changes at the plant in terms of turning off and on mills, monitoring the emission control system. They were all things that they would do anyway if they were going to take that unit completely offline. They simply changed protocols at the plant to be able to implement those in a partial way, meaning not all the coal mills come off, maybe one or two come off. So I would say, I want to emphasize, no cost to implement that. In terms of the costs to cycle, those costs are largely documented as a shortened life of the plant. That the plants, maybe you had a 50-year life on that plant, now that plant is only really going to last 48 and a half years. Well, shortening that life by a year and a half it's pretty costly. And that sort of gets spread out across every one of those cycles. And those cycles could be, a load following cycle could be a couple $1,000s to maybe $8,000 from a load cycle standpoint. If you do a full shut-off and start-up, maybe that's tens of thousands of dollars, maybe $50,000 of amortized costs, because it's not like it costs you $50,000 to shut off. It simply has an impact down the road. At some point, you have to make an investment. Maybe you have an increase in forced outage rate 10 years from now. It just so happens that a lot of the plants that we have, a lot of the coal plants that are in this new duty where they're cycling load following quite frequently, they were scheduled to be decommissioned anyway, meaning that they're at their end of life already. They've been operating largely in a baseload scenario, so they haven't taken on a lot of cycling duty. They're going to be offline in 5 to 10 years already, so we're probably not even going to see that increase in costs because they're going to be offline before they see the wear and tear burden really be realized. So I'm going to say it costs us almost nothing to do it because our units were going to be offline before we actually realize those costs anyway. We are protecting one plant. We have one coal-fired power plant that was built in 2009. It's probably the last coal plant that's going to get built in the western U.S. That plant we are protecting, and it's the last one for us to cycle down because we expect it to be around for at least 25 more years. So we're using other plants that are going to be retired sooner to they're sort of the sacrificial lamb, as it were, to protect some more valuable assets. But that's just our scenario, and I'm sure that there would be like scenarios in India.
I would like to supplement further. There is a perspective from Indian power sector is concerned. We are looking forward in a longer perspective to operate supercritical units as a base load. And as Mr. Park has said, for the units which has outlived its life, we are going to try for the flexible operation. As he has rightly said, there is going to be impact because of cyclic operation, number of start-stops, some failure of the component will be faster, then there is loss of efficiency will be there, then the life cycle cost of the plant, if it is designed for X number of start-stop, if it increases, then the cycle life will also come down. So all these impact will come. So that number has still not been established in Indian perspective. There are some off-the-cuff numbers which we would not like to use in such a forum. We are establishing the studies, and let us see where we land. Thank you.
I'd also refer you to a coal cycling and curtailment costs in the Public Service of Colorado system. It's a public paper that our company is available on the web, and it documents these costs explicitly. So at least you could see what we believe load following and decommitment costs are for about 10 units, anywhere from up to 500 megawatts, a bunch in the 250 and 350 megawatt range. And that gives you an idea of what, at least what we think our load following and decommitment costs are for these plants, and then also how we believe that actually plays out over the next, say, 30 years. And I'd say when it plays out over the next 30 years, it's really not significant, that the burden on the renewable energy just, it doesn't add a lot of cost to this new future.
I think we have time for one more question, then the discussion can be continued during tea break. Yeah.
Hi, thank you. My question is for Simon and any other panelists who'd like to talk about it. Could you talk about the CO2 emissions impacts of power plant flexibility? And two questions in particular. First, are the emissions per megawatt hour of a plant higher when they're cycling, when the plant is cycling, than when it's not cycling? And if so, by how much? And second, have there been any analyses of the CO2 emissions impact of using power plant to integrate renewables into grids, as opposed to other tools for integrating renewables into grids? And how should we think about that?
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much for the question. I think it's a very relevant one. Now, I don't know the numbers from the top of my head that I could tell you it goes up by this percentage on a per megawatt hour basis. But basically, you have two effects that are going on, right? So one effect is that you have a lower part load efficiency, which is an effect that can be mitigated but not completely removed in most cases. On the other hand, you will have a reduction in the overall volume of, in this case, coal-based generation that you would have in the system. Because what's the alternative scenario? The alternative scenario would be that you curtail renewable generation, and then you let the coal generation run. Now, you can already see from this, the crucial question is, what is the alternative scenario, right? So if you don't make a coal plant flexible, it would go out of the system, and it was to be replaced by a demand-side response resource, which is not associated at all with CO2 emissions. The balance for the system could be even better in terms of CO2 performance. But I think if we look at the reality in power systems such as in India, such as in China, and even in the US, as we saw from the example, or Germany, these fossil assets are going to be around for a while. And in this case, looking that they can make room for renewables quickly is something that can have a quite high net benefit for CO2 emission reductions. I mean, look at curtailment rates in China right now. They're in the double-digit range, and dealing with this problem would be an immediate CO2 saving.
So on behalf of USAID, GIZ, we would like to thank all the speakers for their excellent presentation, and to the audience for giving the best listening to all the respectable speakers. So on behalf of all of you, I would like to thank all the speakers and USAID and GIZ once again for giving opportunity on such an important topic for Indian power sector and world as a whole. Thank you very much.